The night everything changed began like any other. Calm, ordinary, unsuspecting. But when my wife turned to me with a serious expression and said, "Lucas, I need you to listen," I had no idea those words would ignite a firestorm that threatened to tear our lives apart. My name is Lucas Bennett. In many ways, I'm an average 33-year-old guy, one of 4 partners in a successful plumbing business. I'm married to Elena, a stunning 32-year-old often regarded as a trophy wife. She works as a secretary for the owner of the local BMW dealership, and together we have an 8-year-old daughter, Maria. We own a house in a nice part of town and a summer home on a popular island in the Baltic Sea. On the surface, our life looked perfect. But appearances, as they say, can be deceiving. Elena and I met years ago when I was installing the town's new central heating system at her parents' house. She was still living at home and in a foul mood, having recently broken off her engagement with a guy nicknamed Bum Blasted. The reason? An enraged husband had caught him sleeping with his wife and shot him in the bare backside with a salt-loaded shotgun. That's the kind of guy Ryan Grant was, a notorious womanizer with a trail of broken hearts and scandal. Despite his questionable reputation, Ryan had once been genuinely in love with Elena, but his true nature, his hunger for instant gratification, ultimately betrayed him, and Elena ended their engagement after catching him cheating. Heartbroken and determined to embrace her newfound freedom, she went through a reckless phase of partying and brief affairs. It was during this period that she and I had our first encounter, a single night of passion that she later distanced herself from. A year later, we reconnected at a party. She assured me her wild days were behind her, and our relationship grew serious. 3 years later, we married, and when she became pregnant with Maria, I believed we had left our pasts behind. But old ghosts have a way of resurfacing. One evening, as we sat watching the weather forecast, Elena turned to me, her face pale and troubled. "Lucas, I need you to listen. I have something important to tell you." My stomach twisted with unease. She hesitated before speaking. "Do you remember my ex-fiancé, Ryan Grant?" My mind flashed back to the notorious womanizer. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "The guy who got shot in the ass for sleeping with a married woman. What about him?" "He's back in town," she said quietly. "He attended an old friend's wedding and he asked a lot of questions about me. He even got my number. We've been talking." The air in the room seemed to thicken. "Talking?" I repeated, my voice hard. "About what exactly?" "Just reminiscing," she said quickly. "He wants to catch up as friends." I felt the first flickers of anger ignite. "Friends?" I said bitterly. "So what does he want, to meet up?" Elena nodded. "He's invited me to Ischia, a 5-star resort. His wife can't make it, but she trusts him, and she's fine with him meeting an old friend." My blood ran cold. "You're kidding," I said, my voice rising. "You're not seriously considering this." "I've already accepted," she whispered. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We could never afford a place like this." My hands clenched into fists. "This isn't about a vacation," I said harshly. "You know exactly why he invited you, and if you think nothing will happen, you're either lying to me or lying to yourself." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't stop the storm of rage and betrayal swelling inside me. I knew without a doubt the real nightmare was only just beginning. I decided to keep this a secret, for now. Soon enough, the entire town would witness her betrayals and my humiliation splashed across the web. At last, for the first time, genuine fear flickered in her eyes. The cost of her so-called free trip was turning out to be far higher than she had ever anticipated. In a broken whisper, she pleaded, "Please don't do this to us. I promise I'll make it up to you when I get back." But it was too late. My voice was like steel as I replied, "There's only one way to make this right. Take out your phone, call that pathetic excuse of a man, and cancel the trip. Do it now." Her lips trembled. I can't do that." That was it. The final straw. I felt an unexpected wave of relief wash over me as I muttered, "Then have a nice trip." With that, I walked into the living room and poured myself a generous glass of my finest single malt whiskey. We didn't exchange another word for the rest of the night. The next morning, she seemed to have recovered her confidence. With a bright, almost mocking smile, she teased, "Do you still think you're married to a 304? I looked at her coldly. "Did you cancel your trip?" Her smile faltered. "No, and I can't." "Then yes," I said evenly. "I still think I'm married to a 304. Her face darkened with anger. "Who cares about your opinion?" she snapped. We ate breakfast in silence. Later at work, I made a call. Clara Smith answered, sounding surprised. "Would you like to have lunch with me?" I asked. Clara lived just a few houses down from us, the mother of my daughter's best friend. She'd divorced her cheating husband about 5 months ago, and I'd always admired her. She wasn't a trophy wife like Elena, but she had a warmth and strength that was far more appealing. Over lunch, after some small talk, I leaned in and said, "I have a secret to tell you, but you have to promise to keep it." Her eyebrows lifted. "A secret? And what's the catch?" "No catch," I said with a smile. "In fact, there's a gift involved. I'd like you and your daughter to join Maria and me on a trip to Euro Disney in Paris. All expenses paid." Clara narrowed her eyes. "What's the condition?" "There isn't one. Not before the trip, not during, not after. I just think it would be easier for me and more fun for Maria to have you two along." She considered my words carefully. "And what does Elena think about this?" "Elena won't care," I said bitterly. "She's too busy planning her own getaway to Ischia with her ex-boyfriend. And I've decided to file for divorce." Clara went silent. After a long pause, she asked, "Can you tell me more about your plans for the trip?" "No concrete plans yet," I admitted. "But if you say yes, we'll plan it together." An hour after lunch, Clara called me back. "All right," she said softly. "We'll come." That evening, she had already arranged a babysitter for her daughter, and we met at my office to start planning. I half expected her to insist on separate rooms, but to my surprise, she suggested a family room so the girls could stay together. I had no objections. From that day forward, Clara and I spoke daily. We booked our flights to Paris, rented a car, and secured a hotel near Euro Disney. Meanwhile, at home, Elena and I barely spoke. The only difference was that I had lost all interest in intimacy with her, and if she noticed, she didn't seem to care. One day, while washing her car at a gas station, I found a folder she'd left in the glove compartment. It contained printouts from the Ischia Hotel's website and an email from Ryan detailing their flight itinerary and boat transfer. It was almost like she wanted me to find it, as if she was taunting me, but instead of anger, it brought me clarity. It was the final proof I needed. I could have given Elena an ultimatum: cancel the trip or face divorce. But I saw no reason to offer her that last chance. In my mind, she had already betrayed me the moment she accepted that invitation. She knew exactly what was expected of her on that luxury getaway, and she had willingly agreed. Yes, I was going. On a trip with Clara. But there were no conditions, no betrayal. Clara was single, and by the time we left, I had already signed my divorce papers. When I told Elena that Maria and I would be going to Euro Disney, she didn't ask for details. Maybe we had both lost interest in each other, though for very different reasons. She left early the next morning, and once I knew they were on the boat to Ischia, I made a call to Ryan's wife. "He's gone too far this time," she snapped, livid. It hadn't been hard to find her. A quick call to Elena's friend, Nancy, told me where Ryan lived, and an online search gave me their home phone number. Then I wrote my letter to Elena. "Dear Elena, your dear friend Ryan is a terrible liar. His wife told me that she was supposed to be working as their hostess while her husband enjoyed his week in Ischia. Maybe you should have spoken to her instead of believing everything that lying bastard told you. She's on her way to Ischia. Now for a serious conversation with her husband. And you. Enclosed, you'll find copies of the divorce papers the court received today. From now on, you're free to do whatever you want. Not that you cared much about me before. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in Ischia reading this letter. Lucas, your soon-to-be ex-husband. I faxed the letter and the divorce papers to their hotel. It didn't take long for the calls to start. Both my home phone and cell phone rang relentlessly. I didn't answer, but I did read her desperate text messages. 1 hour later, she sent another message. I'm coming back home tomorrow so we can clear up this misunderstanding. I replied simply. You didn't share a hotel room with Ryan by mistake. You went there on purpose. Now you'll have to live with the consequences. No reason to complain. Maria and I will be abroad for a few days. I don't care where you are. Later that evening, Ryan's wife called me. She was already in Naples and had demanded that Ryan kick Elena out of their hotel room immediately. Less than an hour after arriving, Elena had checked out. The next morning, Clara, the girls, and I left for our trip. We flew to Paris, picked up our rental car, and easily navigated to our hotel. The girls were thrilled to have each other's company, and Clara and I got along effortlessly. The only hiccup? Our family room had 2 grand-lit beds, slightly wider single beds. Clara and I exchanged a look and burst out laughing. It seemed even the universe had a sense of humor. Elena returned home the next day, sending countless texts swearing she hadn't cheated. I replied once, You cheated the moment you accepted his invitation. You only left because his wife confronted him, not because of any moral revelation on your part. I blocked her after that. Clara and I spent magical days at Euro Disney and in Paris bonding with our daughters. On our last night after the girls fell asleep, Clara whispered, Lucas, I love you. I whispered it back. That night marked a new beginning. The next morning she made a bold offer. You and Maria can move in with me and Will. It was sudden, but love demands risk. I said yes. Elena didn't take it well. She cried hysterically when I moved my things, out begging me to stay. But she had burned her bridges the moment she chose betrayal over our marriage. A month into our new life, I received an anonymous letter at work. Enclosed was a grainy photo of Clara on a bar desk, panties around her ankles with a note implying she had been unfaithful. Rage flared, but something felt off. Examining the picture closely, I noticed inconsistencies. Her hair was too short, her watch was different. That evening, I handed Clara the letter. She burst out laughing. This is from a Christmas party years ago, a silly game with my coworkers. She showed me an album with several photos of women playing the same game. We never found out who sent the letter, but when Clara publicly offered a reward for identifying the culprit, the harassment stopped. Elena and I sold our summer house and agreed on shared custody of Maria. Despite the arrangement, our daughters spent time together often and grew as close as sisters. Elena tried rebuilding her life, cycling through relationships, while Clara and I planned our wedding and dreamed of expanding our family, but karma had its own plans. Months later, I received a message from Abby. She and her husband split. He'd left his phone at her parents' house, where her father discovered explicit messages between him and another woman. The same man Elena sacrificed our marriage for. As for Elena, her latest boyfriend, fresh from a brutal divorce, left her penniless and heartbroken. The life she tried to chase slipped through her fingers, leaving nothing but regret. Meanwhile, Clara and I thrived. Our love deepened, our family grew stronger, and as we planned our wedding, we knew the best revenge is living well.